Quick intro and we'll get right into it. I went garage sailing yesterday and I didn't get too much. And finally, I had a hunch about the last garage sale that I was going to because I thought I recognized the address, and I'll go into the story later on. But basically, I bought some stuff off this guy before. It was a relative of his collection who was a big fan of early rock and roll, like what we now sort of refer to as rockabilly, but back then was just plain rock and roll, and he loved this stuff. So I bought a large part of his record collection, but not all of it, because the fellow wasn't too sure about what he wanted to sell and what he didn't. And then he called me up later. This was about a month back, and this is a full year after I bought the original record collection off him. He called me up about a month back, and I accidentally deleted the message before I got a chance to respond to it, so I couldn't call him back, and I felt bad. And then I noticed this week that what I thought was the same address having a garage sale. I went over, I said hi. I don't know if you remember. I bought some records off you a while back, and you called and left a message, but I deleted it before I had a chance to actually respond to it, so I can't even remember what it was about. And he said, oh, I've got some more records, largely Jerry Lee Lewis stuff, but there's some other good stuff in there too. And I said, great, I'll have a look. And so I went through it. He had boxes of books, which I'm not that interested in because they're super slow sellers, but why not? And then he had several box sets, about 35 different records, and we'll go through them there. And then the best thing of all, and I'll save it, for you to see it, was he said, there's a lot of good stuff in this envelope. He said a lot of it was this relations of his. He went to a lot of shows. He went to a lot of concerts. He wrote to these guys. And he said there's a lot of good stuff in there. And the price? Well worth it. I'll let you know at the end again. So we'll just switch over to the actual stuff now. Okay, so this is the stuff that I got. And we'll go through it quickly. This was sort of the only other thing from the weekend that I picked up that wasn't from this one garage sale. It's still pretty cool. It's nothing major. It's probably mid-60s Zenith tube radio and alarm clock. Kind of cool. Got a good look to it. It'll clean up nicely too. Not huge dollars in here, and I think I only paid like $5 for it. So, like 25, 30, maybe on eBay. If it works, even if it doesn't, somebody just want it for like a display piece or a shelf sitter. Or sometimes these things get picked up by like set decorators for movies and things like that as prop and background stuff. So I always do pick them up when I can. Plus, it's cool. When are you going to get a chance to get another one of those? But this is the rest of the stuff. I'm going to get this out of the way here. Try to do it with one hand. Genius. So, as I said, I had bought cobwebs on this one. I had bought a lot of stuff about a year ago off this guy, and it was all sort of thing. His I can't remember if it was his uncle had passed away, and his uncle, I knew him. I actually seen him at garage sales around town. He loved early rock and roll. In fact, some of his correspondence because this guy wrote to a lot of these artists, the different band members and the artists and things like that. And some of the correspondence is like, him saying things like rock and roll ended the day that 4 lads from Liverpool came to the USA. And, I think there's something to that, because at that point, guys like Elvis, Buddy Holly, Jerry Lee Lewis, the $1 Million Quartet, Carl Perkins, Johnny Burnett, they were the kings. Like, they were it. And sort of once the Beatles rolled in and the British invasion came along, a lot of that sort of got swept away. And I've said this many times before, this stuff, those guys, what is now referred to mostly as rockabilly, but back in the day, like 30 years ago when I started going to like record shows, guess it's longer than that even now, this was the stuff that was up on the wall. Not necessarily these ones, but Jerry Lee's first record, like on Sun, and, Johnny Cash's Sun Records, and Elvis's obviously Sun Records and his first record on RCA, Johnny Burnett's early recordings, Carl Perkins, first record, all those guys, those were up on the, to take a term from Noble Records, the holy moly wall, as it were. But what happens is that a lot of those guys age out who were collecting this 30 years ago, because they were buying it because that's what they grew up with and they loved it. And this, some of that stuff was harder to find. Some of the girl groups and doo-wop groups as well, from sort of the R&B side of things, like the Moonglows, and obviously, like Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley. And although they still, have appeal, it's kind of gone a bit because those guys are moving into smaller places. They're downsizing. Sadly, a lot of them are passing away as well. Their collections come back up on the market, and there are less guys buying that sort of stuff. So the price has dropped quite a bit, but it's still cool to come across it. I mean, I love this music. And I think there has been a bit of a resurgence. Again, almost like a rebranding. What was originally called just like rock and roll, sort of got the rockabilly brand onto it, and there's been a resurgence of interest in that. I have some young people who do collect this stuff, so it's kind of interesting to see, but I digress. So the collection, I had mentioned, I'd gone to see this guy, bought a bunch of stuff, and then like about a year later, he called me, it was a few months ago, and said, I've got some more stuff, would you be interested in it? And I deleted the voicemail before I had a chance to go answer. And today, so this weekend, he was having a garage sale, strangely enough. And I walked up and said, hey, man, you called me, and I didn't hear what it was because I deleted it. I'm really sorry I didn't get back to you. And he was like, oh, yeah, I've got some more. I found some more records, primarily like Jerry Lee Lewis and some other interesting stuff. And he said there's some autographs and, collectible things. And I was like, great. But he's like, I got to sell it all in one group. I don't want to break it up. I'm like, well, can I see it? So the first thing he showed me was these. Cool records. But again, a little harder to sell now. I mean, this is an awesome record. That one's probably staying in my collection. But some of these Jerry Lee records, that's pretty cool too. There's a lot of sort of, not bootlegs, but like German European pressings. And it's a lot of Jerry Lee. It's all pretty much these individuals are Jerry Lee. And there's like 33 of them. And, Jerry Lee has, I think the shine came off a bit off of Jerry Lee with the whole 14-year-old cousin marrying thing. And he never really recovered from that. Okay, oh, look, there you go. Concert ticket. It's kind of you're going to see some more of that coming up. But, music-wise, there was a reason they called him the Killer. I mean, man, he could play, he could wail with the best of them. He played with his feet. He played with his standing up. He played, he would usually kick his piano stool like across the room. I mean, the guy was like punk rock before sort of punk rock hit. I mean, look at that. That's a nice, I think they called that the duck ass haircut back in the day. Yeah, there's a little thing about Jerry Lee and his cousin. But amazing musician, great music, maybe not the best guy in the world, and I know that happens a lot with artists, and we struggle with it. I'm, sort of like on the fence about, I think sometimes you can separate the music from the artist. Sometimes you can't. And, everybody's different on that. So, yeah, that's my little society ramble there. But, so those things. Now, there's 33 of them. I mean, I'll stick these between like $8 and, $5 and $10 in the store, and eventually they'll sell. They all do eventually. But that's slow sellers. So, but then he brought out some of these things like this, which is the complete Buddy Holly box set. I love Buddy Holly. So I was like, worst case scenario, I'm going to keep that. He brings out this great Chuck Berry Chess box set. I was really hoping for the Muddy Waters one and a few other artists, but it was just the Chuck Berry. Then he brings out these, which again, Jerry Lee, but these are really rare box sets. And it covers his entire career from, I think the first one is, I should have put them in order, but I didn't. 63 to 68 is the first box set. I think there's like 12 records in each of these things. There's the next one from 69 to 72, and then 73 to 77. And these, I believe, are German pressings. And then this is the last of the box set. It's the complete Jerry Lee Lewis, the Sun Years. There's outtakes. All these has booklets. All these have everything that came with it. So just, strictly on that alone. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? How much do you want? And he just said $100. And I'm like, well, that's like, around $3 a record on just the regular albums, and the box sets are essentially free. So, okay. And there was a bunch of books. Books aren't big sellers at the store, but, stick them out for a couple of bucks a piece. They'll go away. But then he said to me, he's like, you might really want to look in that envelope. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. He's like, no, there's some good stuff in that envelope. And this was the envelope. Pretty nondescript. Except you see J.W. Brown. And J.W. Brown was... let's see if I can get all these things out here. Was an artist. He was, I believe, the bass player for Jerry Lee Lewis when Jerry Lee first came out and started touring. And this gentleman, whose collection this was, wrote to a lot of these guys. And he wrote back, and that's the original envelope. And in this envelope, again, not all from that same thing, but were things like a autographed Carl Perkins photo, and it's an actual autograph. That's pretty cool. There's 2 Jerry Lee autograph photos, and I've sort of, there's no COA with these, but he did write to them, and he did also go to a lot of the shows, and the ticket stubs are in here, which is kind of cool. And then this is the one again from J.W. Brown, who sent him the picture, and that's him playing bass there, and he signed it at the top. There's a Polaroid of Carl Perkins in '88 in Boston. And then there's various correspondence with some of these other collectors and things like that, which is kind of cool. I just love seeing this because, this guy was super passionate about music and his collection. And you can see that reading this in the correspondence and how much he loved that kind of music. And so I was like, okay, that's cool. Some autograph pictures on there. They're probably worth a little something. I don't deal with autographs a ton, but whatever. But then I started noticing things like this. Ronnie Hawkins, who was another great sort of rock and roll, early rock and roll guy. For those of you who don't know, Ronnie Hawkins was an American, moved to Canada, basically got his first band, the Hawks, went on to essentially become the band. It was Levon Helm and Rick Danko and... oh man, I'm having a total senior. Robbie Robertson, there you go. And they played with him in the bars in Toronto on the Yonge Street Strip. And, they've always credited, like, he's the guy who sort of taught them how to be band. So he's passed away not too long ago, but before that he had his 60th birthday bash, and it was Ronnie Hawkins, Jerry Lee Lewis, Carl Perkins, the band, Gowan and Jeff Healey, and lots of other people with Blue Rodeo, and a lot of Canadian bands around that area. Sylvia Tyson from Ian and Sylvia, sorry. So there's the ticket. It was at Massey Hall. That's sort of the thing, and he even saved that, which is like the newspaper ad. And he did that with a lot of shows. I've got a stack of newspaper reviews, some concerts that he went to. That's Showboat. I don't know why I still have that in there. This popped out of a book, and it is the Memphis State University. I'm sure you can read that. It was in memory of Elvis Presley, but it was honoring Chet Atkins. And there's Chet Atkins' signature, which, for those of you who don't know, Chet Atkins is like a country, not just a country legend, he's a guitar legend. And he was one of the early pioneers of early recording studios work, and he built his own studio from scratch, and just an amazing artist, engineer, and producer. So that's kind of cool to have that. There's another autograph on here, and I believe it is Gene Klein. I Googled it. It turns out Gene Klein was like Elvis Presley's childhood friend, and they stayed in contact their whole lives. He was sort of part of the entourage for a period of time with Elvis. So that's kind of cool for an Elvis person to have that on there. And on the back, there is best wishes from Memphis and Marion Keisker. Marion was the first person who ever recorded Elvis. If you Google that name, it'll come up as that. And then I don't know who that is. I can't figure out. If any of you guys on there can figure out who that signature is, let me know, because that'd be helpful. But that's kind of a really cool thing. If you're like, you know, an Elvis fan, there's Elvis connections there. Chet Atkins autographs are, you know, they sell. So then there was a bunch of ticket stubs, and there was, you know, some interesting, like he went and saw the Mills Brothers, so I'm not a huge fan. But this was the one that caught my eye. From the Niagara Falls International Convention Center in Niagara Falls, New York, he went and saw Elvis in '74, and that's sort of the ticket stub for it. So that alone, I've seen other ones from other shows in the U.S., similar condition, torn like this, sadly, because that's how they, you know, did the tickets back in the day. You know, they're selling for around $85. So that almost pretty much, that's U.S., pretty much pays for everything here, because it was 100 Canadian. So that's, you know, was a nice added bonus. Here we went and saw the Sabres play the Bruins. He saw Willie Nelson, went over into Tonawanda in New York and saw Willie Nelson in '91. That would have been an awesome show. This one kills me because I would have loved to have seen this. Jerry Lee and Bo Didley. Are you kidding me? See Bo Didley live? That's crazy. And then there's another one, Jerry Lee Lewis at Hamilton Place in Toronto. And then there's a few other things on here. But yeah, that was kind of sort of the added bonus of it. And it was almost something that I was sort of like, yeah, okay, it's great. And even the guy said, he's like, you've got, you know, if you do your work on this, he's like, you probably got nearly $1,000 worth of stuff. The values on these box sets range anywhere from Discogs median of about 175 on the big Jerry Lees upwards to 300 each, depending on it. This one is about the same. This one is around $100. And you know what? I can't remember what the Buddy Holly was. So just doing quick math on there, there's like $600 there. And, you know, the records are immaculate. Some of the boxes have some tape on them, obviously, that Sun Years one. But, you know, this is the kind of thing that it'll take a while to sell. Obviously, some of these are going up online. But how often in your life do you get to come across a collection like this, where, especially this paperwork and stuff like that, where, you know, it's early rock and roll. These guys are legends. They're all in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, every single one of them, and, you know, deservedly so. And to get autographs and an Elvis ticket stub, that's not your regular kind of garage sale. It doesn't happen very often. But man, I'm really, really, really glad that I decided to go to that one garage sale at the end, because I was thinking about actually, like, I was discouraged. I didn't get much, and I was like, oh, you know what, maybe it's time to call it a day. And I thought I recognized the address, and turns out I totally did, and super happy that I went. But yeah, if you guys have any comments about this, or if you guys have ever come across any like interesting autographs or memorabilia, or early rock and roll memorabilia like that, that'd be super cool if you want to let me know, because I love hearing stories about that. All right, hope you're all able to get some cool stuff out there, and yeah, hopefully I get some more stuff and I can do another video next week. Bye.